Mishnah Tes Zayin, Perek Tes Zayin, Mishnah Vov. This Mishnah, Mishnah Vov, continues the theme of the previous Mishnah, i.e. we're dealing with situations about how to deal with a fire on Shabbos, what measures you can take to prevent the fire from spreading or to extinguish the fire. This Mishnah deals not so much with what you are going to do to put out the fire, but how you react to other people trying to extinguish the fire. So the Mishnah says as follows: Oved kochavim shebal lechabos. If a non-Jewish person, a Gentile, comes along and tries to extinguish the fire, ein omrim lo kabeh. You're not allowed to actually tell him, positively tell him, extinguish this fire. The reason being, this would violate the issa of amir l'nochri, of amir la'akum. There is a whole section of halacha, an interesting halacha, called amir la'akum, that you are not allowed to tell another non-Jewish person to do a melacha. There is an issa of amir la'akum. You're not allowed to tell a non-Jewish person to do anything which you cannot do on Shabbos. Different reasons are given for this. The Rambam says, "Shalotei kala beinechem," that Shabbos shouldn't be treated, "Shalotei Shabbos kala beinechem." Shabbos shouldn't be treated lightly, leniently in your eyes. And people will become to be mezalzel to treat Shabbos a little bit more flippantly. And Rashi gives two other reasons of shlichus or reasons of v'daber dova. Either way, you're not allowed to tell a goy, a non-Jewish person, to do a melacha on Shabbos. Now, so therefore over here, if the Nochri comes along and tries to extinguish the fire, you can't actually tell him, please be mechaber this. But on the other hand, continues the Mishnah, va'al techaber, ein omrim lo kabe va'al techaber. You're not obligated to tell him, don't do this. If he chooses to do it, then that is acceptable. You're not mechuyev to tell him al techaber. Explains the Mishnah, mipnei she'ein shvisosei aleihen. Because his shvisa is not your issue, is not your problem. The concept of shvisa, i.e. ensuring other people are shoves, i.e. rest and don't break Shabbos, is specifically for you and also your children. The Pasuk says, we read it in Kiddush for those who say Zohar on Shabbos morning, it says, Lo sa'aseh kol melacha, ata uvincha avdecha v'moscha. So therefore, you've got to be sure that your children shouldn't be breaking Shabbos. But a regular Nochri who is not your Eved, then their Shvisa is not your responsibility. So therefore, Al Techaber, you don't have to tell him, don't extinguish it. And even if he's doing it for your benefit, ultimately it's for his own benefit, because he's doing it in order to get paid, that you know that you're going to compensate him afterwards. So therefore it's considered a daita de nafshe. So therefore the Mishnah says, Ein nomim lo kabeh, you can't tell him actually to put it out. On the other hand, Va'al Techaber, you don't have to tell him, don't do it. If he wants to do it, it's acceptable. Because his resting, as it were, is not their responsibility. Continues the Mishnah. But a child who comes to extinguish the fire, you're not allowed to let him extinguish the fire, because you are obligated to make sure that this child keeps Shabbos, even if it's not your child. Now, what child are we talking about? A child who's so young that he just doesn't understand the concept of Shabbos, then we're not dealing with that. We're also not dealing with a child who's obviously at the age of chinuch, who's 9, 10, 11 years old, who understands the concept of Shabbos. Then there's an issue of chinuch, and he can't just do drabonans, etc. We're talking about a child who is a young child, but he understands that he wants to do this to please the father. Now, and here the shvisa, of course, is on you, that you're not allowed to let this child break Shabbos. The trouble is, the Gemara says that there is a halacha of kotzen oichem levelis ein beisim mitzuvin hafrushay. Beisim are not mitzuvah; they're not obligated to keep a child away from eating levelis. And there, the explanation is that he's doing it for his own benefit. The problem over here is that he's doing it for the adult, and since he's doing this for the adult is not allowed to allow him to continue extinguishing, because the shvisa, the resting or the keeping of Shabbos of a child is the adult's responsibility. And therefore the Mishnah says, Kotten shebol lechabois ein shomino, you're not allowed to let him, b'pnei sheshvisose aleihen, because his resting is the responsibility of the adult. That is the end of Mishnah Vav.